In this video I'm going to show how email alerts from one or more Raritan PDUs can be centralized into one place. Let's start by logging into a Raritan PDU. You need to log in as a user with administrative rights to the PDU. And the first thing is we need to set up under Network Services and SMTP Server. We need to provide the name of my host that can receive emails, which I've already got set up as a small Linux box called Bridge. It's working on standard port 25, and when the PDU sends emails, it's going to send them from a user called, or make them appear to be from a user called raritan@dunlaid.ddns.net. It doesn't need any authentication, so that's all we need to do. We now save those details, and we can now run a test. Now there's a user on that machine called Andy C. So if I just send an email to andyc@dunlaid.ddns.net, let's see what happens. Now before I click send test email, let's just log into that machine. It's called Bridge, as I said. I'm logging as Andy C, which is me. This is a Unix command. If you're not familiar with this, don't worry too much. You don't really need to get into this at this stage. But there's a command called from, and if I have any mail, it will tell me that I've got some mail. And if I did have any mail, I could run a command called mailx, which would allow me to read it. If I run mailx, it tells me that there's no mail. So if I now go back here, send the test email, it says it's been successfully sent. We go back and type in from again. It tells me that I've received an email from Raritan@dunlaid.ddns, and it's given me an idea that it's a SNMP configuration test. Type mailx, I now get the message, press this, whole lot of information about the headers, and then this is the actual message text here. This is kind of going back in time. There's no fancy Outlook clients or anything here. In Unix it's all kind of command line based. I'll get rid of this message and then quit out the mail program. If I type from again, there's no mail, and if I type mailx again, there's no mail. Just setting up the SMTP server settings isn't enough. We now need to do two other things in order for the PDU to start sending emails. Under the event rules, we need to add in, first of all, add in a new action. And we're going to call this action email sender. We're going to select the action send email, and then we're going to say which email address. So because we know that we can send to andyc@dunlaid.ddns.net, put that in, create that action. That's all well and good. Still nothing will happen. What we now need to do is we need to create a new event. We'll give it a name. I'm going to call it all event sender via email. You can call it anything you like. It's enabled. The event, we want any sub event, and now we need to select an available action. If we click here, we get the actions. Now email sender is the action I just defined, so I select that one. That's all okay. Create that. So now we've got our rule here. All events sender via email. The action it takes is email sender, and as we saw, the email sender will send an email to Andy C. So I'm just going to log out of the PDU and then log back in. Now the reason I'm doing this is because logging in and logging out of a PDU creates an event, a login event and log out event, funnily enough. So if I now go back to my system here and type from, I've now actually received two new messages about user activity, and I'm also just given a message here. So if I type my mailx, I've now got two messages. If I read the first one, user admin has logged out. Read the next one, user admin has logged in. Let's get rid of those messages. So that's great. we've got the PDU sending emails, but nobody really wants to go into this thing and be looking at command line messages from on a Unix system. The whole reason for sending it to this Unix system, though, was because there's a very neat way where you can get the Unix system to handle your email automatically, and it does that by use of a forward file. So I've got one ready here, which I'll just put into place. Again, ignore all this Unixy stuff. But what happens now is when an email is sent to this machine, instead of the email being stored to be read at a later date by me logging in, the email is automatically processed by a program of my choice, and I've got one here called Raritan mail.py. It's a Python script. Now, also on this machine, I've got a SQLite database intended for storing the emails, which I'm just going to empty, so we can just see everything that we want. And this database can be queried through a simple web interface. Called the Raritan Email Archive Browser. Very basic looks. So if I want to see anything that's been sent from 2018, this year, I get no matches. Look what happens now. If I now log out, go back to my query, run the query again, it's recorded my logout action. If I log in again, and run it again, I've now got my login and my logout. I've also got, look at this, I've got an email about a voltage inlet being deasserted. So we're not only going to get emails about logging in and logging out, I get emails about conditions of the PDU. You can just see my inlet history here is a little bit wayward, let's say. So I get email alerts for this. Now, as I'm running out of my 15-minute time limit, I think, what I'm going to do now is another bit of Unix magic. I'm just going to reinstate a previous database that's been built up over time. Just for demonstration purposes, because this is a demonstration. Now if I do run this query now, we've gone back, we've got an awful lot of entries. We've got 2,289 entries in here. I mean, so we get all sorts of things. We've got voltage deasserted, asserted. There was a peripheral sensor one there, just there. Hold on. I'll show you some of the filtering. If the body contains sensor, for example, we can see all the messages that have the word sensor in them. If we want to pin the messages down to just the PX2 study PDU, this won't make a lot of difference. It's the only PDU that's actually in this database at the moment. We can restrict the subject, or we can filter on the subject. So we could ask for events. So we're getting user activity event. So that's another way we could. So if we went for user activity, and we've got it all. So you can just see how just a very simple web interface allows us to do this. Just on the user activity, let's just do something. If I try and log in as admin and I put in the wrong password, don't try this on a live system. Do that too many times, you lock yourself out. If I run the query again now, we can see we've got the authentication failed. So we could actually then say, do a search where I want to see what the wrong. So if I want emails with the subject contains user activity, the body contains user authentication failed. And actually there's a previous one there. I obviously mistyped the password back on the sometime yesterday. So you can see how all of the alerts are being centralized in one place. This tool allows you to query them. And if you've got many PDUs, which is the only reason you'd really set this up, once you've got all your PDUs configured to point and send all their emails to this one system, you'll have a great way to actually filter and find out information which, by trying to log into all the different PDUs and go through user logins and logs and failed authentication attempts and all this sort of stuff, here it's all in one place. Now, the question you might have in your mind is saying, well, this looks great, Andy. I've got a couple of hundred of Raritan PDUs, but that setup that you had to go through to just get one PDU set up to point to it, that's great if you're only one or two. What if I've got 100 and I need to go and configure 100? That's not a great job to give someone. Well, don't worry about that, because Raritan have an API that allows you to do these things, and I will probably make that the subject of another video, which I'm going to do. But in the meantime, you've seen how the Raritan PDUs can send their email alerts to a central place via email. The receiving code on that server automatically processes the email and puts its information into a database. You can then write a simple web front end to query that database. And because it's in a database, you can make your queries as complex or as simple as you like. So you can build on this. The key thing is that all the data is put into one place automatically, so you can go back and use it as an audit log. You can see what it was finding out on things that have been happening on certain PDUs, and just generally find out what they do. Best approach, make them quite talkative to begin with, and then once you think, well, actually I don't really want to know about these bits of information, you can filter down what the PDUs actually send out by altering the events and all that sort of stuff. But anyway, I think that shows you what's possible, and I hope I didn't baffle anyone with too much Unix stuff. But anyway, if you got this far, thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.